Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description.
All right. So, why give offerings to spirits? So, you know, whenever we're working in evocation or an invocation or we're doing basically any kind of ritual, there are always things that are considered offerings to spirits. So, in the standard, like, um, you know, pagan, neo pagan, Wicca stuff, when we do our regular ritual format, we are not only invoking like spirits of the four directions, whether it's like the watchtowers or whatever from Golden Dawn stuff, or just calling on, the energies and whatever of north, east, southwest. Sometimes you go sky and earth, those different directions. There's candles that are lit. Are those considered offerings? Yes, the candles themselves are also representational of, like you light a candle for each of those directions when you invoke them. And then, you can also have the standard two candles for the god and the goddess, or the divine masculine, divine feminine, or the balancing of energies given the law of polarity, and vis-a-vis the law of gender also from the seven Kabbalion. And when we set up that ritual format, you got to think, oh, or you could think, oh, I'm just lighting these candles as I invoke these spirits to represent those spirits. But candles themselves are fire. It's transmutation of energy, because we're taking something that, a candle with wick and wax and stuff, and we're changing the wax to light and heat. We're transforming something solid into something energetic. And then, if we're invoking different spirits, like in the evocation notebook number 2 that I have somewhere on that shelf over there, it talks about when you're doing an invocation or an evocation, you have, or you can do, tons and tons and tons of incense. And you might think that this is only for um the idea that you could see a spirit in the smoke. And is that true? Yes. But we're also talking about it being offerings to them. So the question is why? Well, I've talked about this in a bunch of my different videos, but there is the concept of Aini from Karo Indian shamanism, where it's an even exchange. You have somebody come over to your house to repair something in your house. You're not just like, hey, thanks for fixing that, bye now. You give them something in return. When your friends come over to help you move, you might give them a pizza party, right? You do a really good job at work, and corporate throws you a pizza party. You go to work and you get a paycheck. There's always an exchange of energy. Now, that is not only fair, but you also have to think, what was I doing just now? Well, I require some sustenance because I just woke up and I'm trying to wake up a little bit more. There's a little bit of caffeine in here, so it helps. But basically, we give spirits energy because they feed off of it. What is up with my throat? So, we give spirits energy because they feed off of it. One, because we are trying to make a connection and make contact with a spirit that is not of this physical plane. So, what we are trying to do is provide some energy to them so they can come here to interact with us. It's like giving your friend gas money so they can help you out. If they have a big truck and you need help with getting something picked up that you bought from a store because you have a tiny 4-door hatchback, then you might need to give them some gas money so they can help you out and go pick up that thing that you're going to then put in your house, right? feeding the spirit's energy with like burning incense or candles or what have you, that is kind of like putting gas in their tank. So they can be present here and they can interact with you. And that offering, so it's partially offering, partially energy. So you give them gas money and maybe a little bit extra for their trouble and their time. So, one of the things that I wanted to mention to demonstrate this whole concept is the story of, Demeter and Persephone. So, we know one, and I will sit on this hill on my soapbox, that the Demeter and Persephone story is a further telling of the Descent of Inanna story, just kind of translated over time through the game of telephone, through different spiritual systems and whatnot. But you have, you know, Demeter and Persephone, mother, daughter, they're hanging out all the time, and Persephone's starting to look kind of cute. And Hades doesn't have a wife. So he's like, hey, Zeus, bro, I need a wife. How about Persephone? And Zeus is like, you know what, dude? That's a cool idea, but Demeter would never allow that. She would not let you do that. But I'm the boss man, so I'm gonna say it's okay. So one day when Persephone and Demeter are not together, and Persephone is out in the fields picking some flowers, Hades emerges from the underworld and he grabs her real quick and he goes back down into the underworld. And Demeter's like, yo, where's my daughter? And Zeus is like, I got no idea. And none of the other gods are like, I know where she is. So Demeter throws a fit. Demeter says, hey, and I'm going to get to the point in a second. Demeter says, I am not going to do my job. I am not going to help make grain. I am not going to help the bounty of the earth happen until somebody tells me where my daughter went. And the gods are like, especially Zeus, is like, we can't have that. Because if Demeter doesn't make grain, people don't eat. If people don't eat, people die. If people die, people don't give us offerings. And then that's bad for us. So that's an interesting thing there, isn't it? You would think the gods are all powerful and who cares? Yeah, if those puny humans don't give us offerings or whatever, we're gods, we're immortal, who gives a crap? We can still do our own thing. No. They want those offerings. They feed off of those offerings. Now, it's not entirely explained about, like, maybe the offerings are like pizza and it's awesome, whereas they would just eat some other regular random food all the time, but they want that pizza really bad, right? Maybe it's Greek pizza. Greek pizza is pretty dope, but of course they need / want those offerings very, very, very bad. So Zeus is like, okay, Demeter, Hades took her. So sorry about that. I thought it was a cool idea at the time. And then the story continues on from there, but that's not relevant. So story time over. So clearly, spirits, gods, what have you, they like offerings. They arguably need offerings in maybe to function better. Maybe they feed off of that in some way. Even in the Kara tradition, we have the idea of hucha, where hucha is something that we all generate. Humans are the only ones that generate it. It's heavy, dense energy that can come from anything negative. And we even just make it day to day from up, work, home, TV, bed stuff, what have you, even negative emotions, traumas, things like that. We get this heavy, energetic sludge. And when we give it to the earth, when we give it to Mama Elpa, she transmutes it and gives it to the lower realms. Now, when our hucha goes to the lower realms, it's considered Sami, or positive, happy, awesome energy. So our hucha becomes good stuff for those in realms below us. So we can actually feed spirits in the lower realms through our hucha, through transmuting that. So you can have this continuum of a higher realm, something up there gives hucha, and then it becomes positive energy for the one below that, and then they have hucha and it gives positive energy to the ones below that. So we can feed different spirits our energies. Now, with offerings and different things like that, you can also not only do incense and burning candles and other things like that, but you can also give offerings that are energetic. So, music, singing, dancing, whatnot, it all creates this energy that if you have it in a cast circle in this container, then you can it's like bottling it up or charging a battery, and then you give that energy to the spirit that or spirit or what have you that you are working with. So offerings can take many, many different forms, right? And we need to charge that battery not only to allow that door to open between this four-dimensional universe, length, width, height, and time. And if we're, depending on whether we're going down or going up, looking for a particular spirit that we want to work with, you know, that's not entirely relevant, but we need to give the energy in order to breach that gap, whether it's going down to look for a spirit down there or up to look for a spirit up there. Of course, we don't entirely understand dimensional theory at this point. It's more theoretical physics and whatnot, because dimensions are more alongside us, just past the veil. And how can we go past the veil? Well, we can communicate with spirits and stuff past the veil, because things of a higher dimension, I think I saw a thing even with Neil deGrasse Tyson about this. Somebody that lives in a dimension that is one plane or one dimension higher than us, they have access and can see everything in this realm, right? So the higher you go, all higher, the more dimensions are stacked on top of the four that we are already in. So they can already experience this realm, but there's got to be some kind of barrier-ish in between the realm just above us, above me in this case, just because I'm talking from my point of view, and that veil or that barrier can hypothetically be crossed with an energetic push. It's almost like if I have somebody that's in this room behind me, right? They can't pass this physical barrier, but when I make a call out to them, "Hi, how are you back there?" I could hear somebody say, "I'm fine, how you doing?" from behind that wall. Can they enter this realm? Well, I mean, if I give them enough energy, they could bust the wall down. And then you have an apparition. You can have a spiritual, like, experience of actually seeing a spirit in the room. And, some spirits can muster up the kind of energy on their own. Some, that's why you can have, like, hauntings and different things like that. Or, yeah, that kind of stuff. Or you can give them that energy so they can breach the gap. And of course, there's a whole continuum of that where a little bit of energy would be just hearing or me even feeling something. Like, we can feel that when there's somebody in a room, right? That kind of stuffy elevator feeling. And then a little bit more energy, you might be able to hear them. And then a little bit more energy, you might be able to hear and see them. So the more energy that you're arguably able to give, depending on the spirit and whatnot, because this is a not entirely understood science, it's more metaphysics, then as the theory goes, the more energy that you give them, the more present they are able to be. And of course, this also has to do with tuning your own antenna and building your own skills with being able to see, sense, and whatnot with spirits. But the more energy that you're able to give them, which they like and they need, which is demonstrated by the Demeter and Persephone story, then the more likely they are to show up. So it's not only giving them the power to show up and be present and hear you and work with you, but it's also because arguably they want this kind of energy. They want these offerings. They need these offerings. So the more that you work with particular spirits, the more in tune with your energy that they are, the more that you are tuned in through the work that you do, the easier it's going to be to give spirits that energy, and then the easier it is to be able to sense these spirits when they show up. The TV show Supernatural did a really, really great job of explaining the whole idea with how gods and goddesses can become more and less arguably powerful. I don't remember like a specific episode or a specific season of what I'm going to talk about here, but they had one episode where Sam and Dean were like kidnapped by these two um by this old couple that turned out to be a god and a goddess, and they were complaining about how nobody gives them offerings anymore. So they kidnap people and, you know, end them to make offerings for themselves so they can grow in strength and power. And, with the emergence of monotheism and most people being of that persuasion, all the offerings are going where? They're going to Allah, they're going to Yahweh, they're going to God and Jesus and whatnot. So all of that devotion that people have when they believe monotheistically, or they believe in like any of the major faiths and whatnot, all of that energy from their belief, and even when they go to church and when they pray and blah blah blah, that's a lot of energy that's going towards those particular um deities, more Allah, Yahweh and what have you, than other lesser gods. Like, how many people used to worship Anu, Enlil, Enki, Inanna, Ishtar, all of those, versus nowadays? So, who's being fed more? Who's being given more energy? Well, arguably the older gods are weaker because there's not a lot of people working with them, not a lot of people making offerings to them, right? Whereas you have all the whole push with the monotheistic stuff and all the major religions, and those deities are getting more offerings. They're getting way more energy. So then they are able to be seen as more present and more powerful because you have more people that are worshiping them. You know, it's it's just kind of interesting. I'm trying to parcel out this idea in my head. I got thoughts and I'm trying to turn them into words. But it's, even you can even kind of compare it to sports teams. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of fans of particular sports teams or particular sports. So, like, which sports have more of a presence on TV? Well, the ones with more fans. You I don't think that you have something as strong as like the national pickleball championships. No offense if anybody plays pickleball or whatever, but think of how prominent the NFL is with the Super Bowl versus some other kind of sport. You know, you have way more fans for football than you do for chess. So which one is more prominent and whatnot? Obviously, football, because more people are feeding energy, their attention, their time into it. You got people that are wearing football like sweatshirts with their favorite team on them and stuff. Same thing with baseball and whatever. I wonder which one is actually more popular. Not that I care about any of those, but the whole big picture is that spirits need offerings, they want that energy, and it allows you to connect with them better when you give those offerings and give that energy. And the more and more strongly that these spirits are worshipped and venerated and fed, then the stronger they become. So arguably they need us, which is why they work with us. Because you can think, if there's an all-powerful being that what have you, that that is out there somewhere, why the hell would he want to interact with a little Joe Schmo like me? I'm an ant. Why does he want to hang out with an ant? Why does he want to help out an ant? Well, maybe because something I have to give him is very, very, very likable. You know, what if I have what he needs, and what they, what have you, what the gods want? And then when I start to give that to them, they're like, "Oh, dude, sweet, this is awesome. I will happily help you out because you gave me this stuff." Right? So it just makes you think, because I've heard so many different things about, like, you know, if it's an all-powerful being, they really don't need us. But if you think about it, even in like Christian theology and stuff with the Bible and whatever, they say God wants a relationship with you, with humans. Well, if he's an all-powerful being and stuff, he might just be a little bit needy with wanting to have friends. Maybe he just doesn't know how to make friends on his own or something, and he wants friends. Or it's not the friendship thing. Maybe he needs what we have, and he needs those offerings in order to live and lead a better existence. So the next time that you want to go and work with a spirit, think to yourself not like, is this spirit going to connect with me at all? Is this stuff real? Blah, 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 what have you. Things like that. Don't think that. Think, I have what they want. I have what they need. And if I do it right and I practice and whatnot, that relationship will build, will grow, and I'll be able to interact with these spirits and see them and work with them. And that brings me to probably what I'll just make my final point, because I've made a 20-minute video at this point. Um, the idea is that the more and more and more and more and more that you work with particular spirits, the stronger your relationship gets, and then the more likely you are to hear from them, to see them, to smell them, to interact with them. So that's why things like the 50 Names of Marduk and the 72 goetic things, spirits and sigils, aren't exactly the best demonstrator, at least in my opinion, from the traditions that I follow and whatnot, in terms of being able to build relationships with spirits, because it's just, I'm calling a repairman to help me fix something, and that's it. It's done. It's over with. Whatever. Right? Whereas you, with like shamanism and animistic practices and different things like that, and the Paco path that I follow, we're building relationships with spirits through continual prayer, offerings, and different things like that. And the more and more and more that you work with them, the stronger that relationship gets. So the more that you work with in a certain vein, in a certain avenue with certain spirits, the stronger your relationship is going to get, and the more likely you are to interact with them, hear them, see them, experience them. That's why I tell a lot of people with the Simon Necronomicon to start off with the 50 Names of Marduk, even though it's technically not traditionally sound to do that particular thing. But the more and more and more that you work with a particular avenue, a particular vein of spirits, don't just bounce around. The easier it's going to be to tune into their radio frequency, for lack of a better term, and then the more likely you are to have a solid relationship, to experience them, to see them, to hear them, and because you're learning what a particular group of people like, a particular group of spirits like to eat. You hang out with a particular age group, more often than not, they're all going to like the same kind of thing. Those dang kids with their TikTok and whatnot and all that social media crap, they all like the same thing, don't they? Well, you're tuning into their frequency, for lack of a better term, of what do the kids like nowadays. Well, you got to tune into that frequency of what do these particular spirits like, or these guys over here. That's why offerings can be different depending on the culture. That's why they can be different depending on the particular flavor or kind of spirit. That's why the Simon Necronomicon stuff calls for, offerings of pine, sandalwood, or cedar. Other different spirits might call for different kinds of incense, or a very, very particular kind of thing, like an energetic prayed offering with leaves is the most basic offering that we do in the Kara tradition. And then you can have things like hierarchies, also known as despachos, that are a collection of things that are arguably specific to those particular spirits. And right, we're giving the spirits the kind of food that they like, because not everybody likes the same thing. If I ever become a spirit and somebody offers me tuna, I'm gonna throw a fit. Tuna's gross. Anyways, so yeah, pretty long one, but definitely let me know what you think down in the comments. Let me know what kind of offerings you've given to spirits. What is your experience with spirits, and if you're a beginner at it or you are pretty advanced at it. You can always drop suggestions for future videos down in the comments, and subscribe if you haven't, because I do magic videos every single week, and like this video if you liked it. Good hunting.